Good afternoon. My name is Victor Oljai. I'm a principal in the buildings group here at Rocky Mountain Institute, and we recently got another question about building retrofits and historical preservation. And we're lucky here today to have Elaine Adams, who is also a senior consultant with Rocky Mountain Institute and a specialist in historic preservation. Elaine, would you like to talk a little bit about how you feel historic preservation and deep retrofits can be coordinated?
Oh, definitely. The one thing to keep in mind when you're working with historic buildings and energy efficiency is that many historic buildings started off very efficient. And if you think in terms of trying to identify a theoretical minimum or a technical potential on these buildings, what you may be looking at actually is a restoration of the original systems or some of the original systems. And with today's technology, we can use energy modeling to identify and recover those technologies. We can use that same system, that same energy modeling system or process to determine what other measures we can do to this building. A lot of energy efficiency measures actually don't show up in the building. So there's not, there may be a perception that energy efficiency or sustainability and historic preservation has a lot more conflicts involved with it than it really does. They're actually very compatible. There are a lot of things we can do to these buildings that nobody sees, but are very, very effective. One thing we like to talk about here is addressing infiltration before addressing insulation. The best thing you can do is tighten up your building. It's never going to get too tight for you to breathe. Don't worry about that. Address infiltration first. And that really means tightening up your windows. And a lot of people think that means replacing your windows. Sometimes it does, but the windows have to be in really bad shape before you do that. You can do an awful lot with a window retrofit, as we've just proved on the Empire State Building, also an historic building. While those windows themselves were not historic, the same process could be used on an historic building, where the windows were improved on site and reinstalled. You don't lose any of the character that way. Really, you just look at it very much as an integrative design solution. Maybe more so with historic buildings than almost any other building I've found. You really need to get everybody in the room and brainstorm on both the history of the building, how it was used originally and how it functioned originally, to some of the newer technologies we have today that can really enhance that performance. So sometimes what you're doing is not necessarily creating energy efficiency, but restoring energy efficiency.
That's good. So Elaine, I have a question for you about the Byron Rogers project in Denver. I believe they were restoring windows in that building too, and it's also of historic significance. Do you know what they did there?
The Byron Rogers building actually is a mid-century modern building and has different challenges than some of the older historic buildings. It's a whole new set of challenges that our industry is starting to deal with. At the Byron Rogers building, we have tinted glass, very dark tinted glass. It really affects the interior of these spaces, adversely affecting daylighting capability in the building. So what we're looking at now is lightening the tint on those windows. It's going to make a big difference. The difference between an 80% tint and a 20% tint, in reality, looking at it from the outside, is very little. But inside, it makes a big, big difference. Mid-century modern buildings also have curtain walls. That's another set of challenges. With the Byron Rogers building, what you want in any curtain wall system is an effective thermal break so that you don't get direct transfer of cold right into the building.
So you can keep the historical character of the building, improve the daylighting, and improve the thermal performance without creating the historical problems.
Exactly.
Elaine, you've been in this field for a long time. Could you recommend some resources that people could go to for more information about historic buildings?
Definitely. There's a lot of information out there. I would start with the National Trust for Historic Preservation. It's actually preservationnation.org. They have a lot of building efficiency information there. They're not just focused on historic buildings, contrary to their name. They really are focused on maintaining an existing building stock, a healthy, viable building stock that contributes to communities. And if we're going to keep them viable, we want to keep them energy efficient. So they're a great resource. The other one is the National Center for Preservation Technology and Training, which I think is actually a National Park Service branch. They have an enormous amount of information on their website. Go on their website, search for energy, and there's a lot of articles that come up and a lot of resources for you. Other ones are the Association for Preservation Technology. That's a great resource. That's apti.org. And National Park Service. The National Park Service themselves, they oversee a lot of historic preservation projects, and in doing that, they understand that we want to encourage energy efficiency in these projects, even whether it's a tax credit project or you're just working within an historic district. So they actually do have quite a bit of guidance there too.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us today, and we look forward to getting some more questions on this subject and others.